Hello and welcome to another episode of the Litigator's Lens of the Community First podcast, a B&P associate podcast where we discuss legal and social issues that matter to the community. This is the second part of a 2-episode series where we're discussing the battle between land title certificate, possession, and indenture. In the first episode, we discussed due diligence during land acquisition. If you missed that episode, please look in the description box and get up to date on that episode and quickly come back to this episode. But in this episode, we'll be talking about one of the juiciest battles in land law, the battle between land title certificate, possession, and indenture. Which holds more weight? I'm joined in the studio by not one, but 3 brilliant legal associates of the firm to unpack this showdown. So we have David William Akuoko-Nyantakyi, we also have Konadu Odame, and Ernest Kofi Boateng. My name is Maame Afia Frimponmaa Dwira. Do stick around for the rest of the discussion. Hello, welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Maame Afia. Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you in the studio with us today because this discussion is one of the most talked about discussions when it comes to land law. Someone comes, lawyer, I've been on this land for 15 years. Someone just came up and says he's the owner. Or someone will come and say, lawyer, I have a land title certificate, and they are saying I'm not the owner. Or someone comes and says that I have an indenture. That's one of the most popular word amongst people. I have an indenture, so I own the land. And so today we want to help the people understand which one holds more weight, which one is the courts most likely to say that because you have this, we are going to give you the land. And so before we get into all the discussion, help me. If you are to put your best bets on one of these things, be it possession, be it land title certificate, or be it indenture, which one are you putting your best bet on?
Well, for me, I think I'll place my bet on land certificates because of the intricate process it will take an individual before acquiring one. In as much as the others are also important, but I'll place my bet on land certificates.
Okay, yes. So one for land certificates, gentlemen.
So I will go, as always, for the indenture. Depending on the circumstances. I know you said we shouldn't go into there, but let me just briefly touch on this, that for the possession, right? You mentioned possession, then you mentioned indenture, and then you mentioned the title certificate. So there's a basic principle of land law that whoever is in possession has a good title to the land, and it is better against everyone in the world, save for the true owner of the land. In this case, is the person who has the indenture to the land, depending on the circumstance. Then the Land Act says also that good title is based on documentary evidence, which is your indenture or any other document, judgment or something like that. So even the Land Act stipulates what constitutes a good title, and then it places premium on an indenture. Now, title registration, simply put, only is notice of registration of an indenture or title or an interest in land, right? And it does not give validity to a transaction that is evidenced by the registered indenture. So if it is an invalid indenture you've purported to register, then it has no legs to stand. So an otherwise invalid indenture, right, registration will not confer validity on it. So which is why I will always go for an indenture first. There may be possession, then you have maybe a title registration down there.
Okay, interesting conversation. William, are you ready to move this scale either way? So are you placing your bet?
I'm not sure whether I would call it a battle. It's more of this infamous love triangle in land law. Yes, we have. I like to draw an analogy with like a kingdom, right? Where you have a king, his royal scribes or his advisors, and then the commoners, right? And you would ideally, you would liken a land certificate to the king. He's backed by everything, the legitimacy, everything. Then you would have the royal advisors. Like, they're important, but they're often overlooked. And that's where I would place an indenture. Then you have your commoner, the common floor member, with like possession rights. I mean, that's how I would rank it. But ideally, I would have land certificates, indenture, and then possession. But you would come to realize, as Christian was saying, that land title, I mean, land law is very nuanced, and you can't really always say, if it ends up in courts, can get really messy. So you can't really say the king would always take the day. Sometimes you would have a land certificate, but depending on the circumstances, you may be defeated by the commoner. That's the one in possession. So that's how I would.
Yeah, I like the fact that you've introduced the whole nuances to land law and land ownership, because depending on the facts, everything may turn on its head, and you may think that, okay, I'm in possession, but you're actually not in ownership. Or you may have a very beautiful land certificate which you probably even framed and placed in your house, but it doesn't necessarily grant or particularly stay for a fact that you own the land. So let's situate this whole conversation in a scenario, because then that would probably help our audience to better understand the odds or the chances of maintaining ownership or having ownership depending on the situation. So I have a very interesting scenario here, and I'm sure there's someone out there that probably this scenario may sound very similar to something you're going through, so you may want to listen. So in 2012, Benjamin purchased land from a family attaché. Let's call that family Newme, if that is even a thing.
What kind of name is that?
Okay, let's
You can do
Doku.
better than Nime.
okay,
Definitely.
Doku
Alright.
family.
Okay.
Doku family. So in 2012, Benjamin purchased a land from the Doku family attaché. And then an indenture was duly executed between the family and Benjamin. That's Doku family and Benjamin. Benjamin subsequently obtained a land title certificate in the same year after registering his interest in the land with the Lands Commission. Then Benjamin traveled to London without making any developments to the land. In 2013, Beatrice bought the same land from the Doku family, who was also Benjamin's grantor, and an indenture was signed between Beatrice and the family. Benjamin returned to Ghana in 2020, only to find out that Beatrice had built a 3-bedroom house on the land. So 3 things in this scenario. Benjamin has a land title certificate. Beatrice has an indenture but no land title certificate. However, Beatrice is also in possession of the house since 2013 when she purchased. Now, we all kept talking about the nuances. Does these nuances help us make a determination? What do we think?
This is what I was talking about. Like, it can get messy. Now you have the king facing his commoners and the scribes. In this case, you have a land certificate going against the person in possession with an indenture but no land certificate, right? Yes. One of the biggest problems that culminate in litigation when it comes to land disputes in Ghana is simple due diligence. When people are buying lands, you acquired land in 2013, and I'm talking about Beatrice, right? You acquired land in 2013. Unbeknownst to you, this land had previously been acquired in 2012. If you had conducted a simple search at the Lands Commission, you would have discovered that this land is encumbered, but you didn't do that. And now the question comes as to who is the true owner. Who the true owner is evidently, in this case, the person who has the land certificate. And I'll explain why. When you acquire interest in land, right, you typically, from the indenture stage, you acquire what is known as equitable interest. And then you enter into possession and whatnot. You are required, which is not usually done, but then you're also required to perfect your title and then get to that state of, having everything, including the land certificate. But before all that, you're supposed to do some basic due diligence, what you call buyer beware. If you do not do this, the law would sometimes fix you with actual or constructive notice of all those defects in your title that you would have discovered if you had actually taken the steps to verify whatever it is that you were acquiring. And in this case, it would be actual notice. I don't know, for our listeners, there might be a need to distinguish between actual and constructive. Constructive means something that you would have discovered if you had taken the steps. So typically this would be visiting the land to make inquiries about who owns this land and whatnot. But actual notice refers to something that you actually know about. And under the law, this is 2012, right? So the Land Act wasn't in force at the time. So you would have PNDC Law 152, Land Title Registration, and then maybe the Land Registry Act. All these laws talk about the fact that, the Lands Commission is the repository of all information affecting lands in Ghana. So any entry in their records, any instruments lodged with them for the purposes of ascertaining ownership of land, these laws deem that they are actual notice to the entire public. So if you had conducted a search with the Lands Commission, you would have had notice of it. But it's not even constructive, it's actual. So this is like a very, in my own way, brief way of saying that in this case, I missed the name. Benjamin would be the true owner for the purposes of determining who actually owns the land and who is the true owner of the land. But it would have to go through courts. Yeah, it would have to go through courts for the courts to determine whether Beatrice is someone who we can call a bona fide purchaser for value without notice. And there are conditions that the courts would look at: good faith, valuable consideration, legal interest. The most important part, which I was talking about since I started talking, is the notice part, because that's where most people lose their lands, the notice bit.
So, Maame Afia, so the question, right? You want to know who is likely to succeed in court, and what are Beatrice's options and Benjamin's option. I'm guessing since Beatrice is in possession, Benjamin will obviously be the one to sue. So in law, we have what we call title, as we started, and title basically means, not as in indenture, title. The legal concept, it basically means that the means by which you establish your claim to a land. So this space, what is the means by which I'm saying in this space I have the right to exercise? You establish title either by possession or by an indenture, or we call documents, right? Now, at the barest minimum, as I explained, whoever is in possession of the land has said to have a good title. It is good against everybody, except for the true owner. Right.
So let me cut you. So does that make your definition of who the king is? William talked about the king being the land title certificate, but from how you speak, I gather that you deem the person in possession as the king, or am I mistaken?
Just to say,
no, okay, that's not the case.
No,
Okay.
not at all. Okay. Possession is good, obviously, but if it is by mere possession, that is where it is dangerous. Okay. If it is based on an indenture, then that's good, because then you got your indenture and then you entered into possession. Do you understand? So then there's title, as I said. I mean, documents, that's indenture, which you documents is how you also prove that you have the right to go to a particular land to exercise. So in this case, Doku family has transferred the land to Benjamin in 2012. He has gotten an indenture. So at the time of the transfer to Benjamin, right, Doku were the owners of the land. Then by the indenture, they transferred it to Benjamin. So Benjamin now, as at 2012, in respect of that land, if you want the owner, you go to Benjamin. Then he takes the steps as William and even perfected his title by registering it. So for all intents and purposes, the Doku family has no business transferring the same land to another person. Whoever subsequently purchases land from Doku family, the same land, is getting an invalid title because at that material time, the owner of the land is Benjamin. Agreed. Now, the same family has sold it to Beatrice. If it goes to a battle between Indenture, Beatrice loses flat because then it is from the same grantor. So the court will look at the issue of priority of grant. So I got it first, you got it later. Then that means on the basis of our indenture, having satisfied ourselves that we are dealing with the same land, then since I got it first and then evidence proves it, then I am the better. I have a better title than you. But here maybe Beatrice may want to rely on the fact of possession. So if Benjamin sues, her defense will be, I have an indenture. If with the indenture she'll fail, as I've explained. So maybe she will seek to rely on her possession. Having been in possession from 2013 to 2020 and erected a structure on it. Remember I said possession is good, save for against the true owner. But there are instances where even though you are the true owner, your rights as a true owner is extinguished. And some of the instances is what we call estoppel by acquiescence. Allow me to get a bit technical. It basically means that you know this is your land, and somebody has entered your land and exercising acts of ownership. You don't say anything, and later you want to come and assert it is your land. So the law will say, by virtue of failing to assert your rights as the true owner of the land, watching on fraudulently for somebody to develop the land, you can't come back and say it is my land. Okay. Do you understand? So that is what maybe Beatrice can rely on. That, oh, you, Benjamin, you are extolled by your conduct, maybe acquiescence, that you watched on as I develop it. 3-bedroom house, it's not a small joke. And now you are coming to say it's your land. Jan, but then for it to avail to you, there are conditions you must satisfy. The Supreme Court is very clear that one, if I'm relying on, I must prove that I innocently entered, although erroneous. I entered innocently believing, oh, this is my land. I have the rights to this land. So having gotten the indenture and then they gave her the space, she may innocently, but I'll come to the innocent. The second element is that you must have spent money developing it. And the third element is the true owner must be aware and watch on as you develop it, or do act to encourage you that, oh, this is your land. Do you understand? And then the last one is it must be otherwise unconscionable to say that we are taking it from you, the one in possession, and giving it to the true owner. Now, on the first element, that was what William was discussing. Can you really say you are innocent? If you had conducted a simple search, it would have revealed, because he has registered it. Even though he hasn't done anything on the land, you went to see a bare land. Fine, you may have done due diligence by going to the land. It's bare. There's nothing on it. But maybe a simple search in the lands registry, lands commission, would have revealed that somebody has already gotten a certificate. So if you want to buy, you should be seeing Benjamin. So under the law, if somebody has registered or there's any entry in respect of land in the land registry, we are said to have actual notice. So by virtue of the fact that Beatrice will be said to have actual notice, she can't rely on innocence, which means the first condition the Supreme Court has outlined for you to satisfy to rely on acquiescence falls flat. Mm-hmm. So she can't come under title, and if it's coming under possession too, unfortunately, the conditions have not been satisfied.
So it doesn't look good for
maybe Beatrice. Benjamin may likely succeed in court.
Okay, so let me ask this. So I know the Lands Commission is it's an institution that is made up of people, and errors are not far from the Lands Commission. I mean, errors are bound to happen or may happen. What if a search is conducted? And let me just pause here and say, you keep hearing due diligence, and this was the main discussions in the previous episode. So like I said, if you want to be caught up on the whole essence of due diligence, you can always go back to the episode 1 where we delve into due diligence, and then you would better understand the discussion. So just feel free to catch up on that and come back if you may. So back to my question. Beatrice goes ahead, does a search. The search comes, or the report comes, and it shows that there is no land registered in or registered to that particular land that she got from the Doku family. At this point, would we say that the whole question of innocence, innocently acquiring the land, or the whole requirement of notice to the world, because the reports would actually, or in the Lands Commission records, there is a land registered to Benjamin. However, when she did her search, the reports that came to her, perhaps by some mistake of an official or maybe in their records, it comes up to her that there is no such plotting or issue on that particular land. Then what happens then is requirement of notice and whatnot met in this instance.
Okay, so I believe there is room for human error, and in such circumstances, indeed, the search report from the Lands Commission can actually indicate that there's no recorded activity or land certificate has not been issued in respect of that land. But definitely, that is not the only means of ascertaining or confirming title, or let's say identifying an individual as being in possession of a certain land. You can actually go to the land itself as perhaps a prospective buyer, engage the town folk, okay, ask questions. It may actually be reviewed that we know this specific individual to have come around this time, even though there's no activity ongoing in the land, but we know. Then definitely to spark that interest, or to pique your interest to probe further, then definitely you can also ask further questions from the grantors themselves. In this situation, you would realize that there will be the need for you to use the services of a legal professional who would know where to look for or where to look at to identify or to confirm title in respect of the property. So in as much as a report may indicate that there's no recorded activity, I believe there are several other avenues or means to ascertaining that.
But in Ernest, I'm still a little worried for Beatrice, because
that's
Beatrice,
where I wanted to say something in favor of Beatrice, because I feel like everybody is against. But yeah, in that scenario, I would say Beatrice has a stronger likelihood of succeeding. And why do I say this? This time, the question, first of all, it's a question of fact, right? It's an evidential issue, whether the person is, as Christian said, an innocent purchaser, whether you actually did the things that you're supposed to do, so that we don't fix you with notice, right? And she actually does it in your hypothetical situation. And the Lands Commission, which is supposedly the repository of they tell you that, hey, this is cool land.
Yeah, and let me add that she's also buying the land from the same family.
Yeah.
So
and the land is bare, no development.
Exactly.
So I feel like she has a lot she could stack up to say, hey, I'm an innocent purchaser.
But honestly, I think I'm not comfortable, even though, yes, Lands Commission should be presumed to be the repository of all lands. We understand the situation on the ground. I'm not sure every land has a recorded activity, or they have the much needed details for someone to use that as a conclusive basis to perhaps conclude a transaction.
So here I agree with you. So what Maame Afia, you see, right now, if it goes to court, Beatrice has to prove that she innocently entered what's the land. You see, so if she can adduce a search report, 2013, before the indenture, the search report clearly says that Lands Commission has told me that there's no recorded transaction in respect of the land I'm buying from the Doku family. Do you understand? So here, even though Benjamin has already registered, Lands Commission is telling me, it's an official report. There's the original lands, the officer, his signature is there. It's an authentic report from Lands Commission, right? You have that documentary evidence coupled with what Ernest was saying. You've also gone onto the land,
And
realized that it's a bare land.
Bare land.
No one is in possession for you to, or there's no act of possession on the land.
Yeah, which will like flare up some questions.
Exactly. For you to, because you see, the law is that if you go onto the land and somebody is in possession of the land, the law says you have actual notice of the fact of the interest of the person, and it is binding on you.
Yeah.
That is a decision of the court. So if I have the report, Beatrice has the report, and she has also evidence of going onto the land to investigate, asking people, has anybody come here to show that maybe, or there's nothing on it. With this too, she can demonstrate innocence of the fact that she innocently purchased something that has already been sold. And she's developed it. Mind you, the Supreme Court says the development must be significant. So let me clarify, in that case, did somebody just erected a fence wall, and then did a standpipe? He said that is significant development. He said, no, it must be significant development. Build it to a lintel level or complete the building. That's the only way you satisfy the second condition. Do you understand? And then obviously the third one, the owner must be aware. And so just to answer your question, if there was an error in Lands Commission's report, and Beatrice has a copy of the search report coupled with an groundwork investigation, with this too, coupled with satisfaction of the other conditions we've already discussed, she's likely to succeed and rely on acquiescence. Yes.
It doesn't look like an assistant.
I'm not settled, even though yes, Christian and then William make a valid argument, but definitely we just need to be a bit practical. The courts would look at the evidence and then the whole circumstance or the whole situation in its entirety or in its totality. But perhaps couldn't Beatrice have conducted one more land search at the. I'm just worried for Benjamin. Maybe
I think
the Land Act actually says, and this is in 2012 again, so meaning the Land Title Registration Act, whatever the case may be, the law actually uses the word entries are, conclusive evidence of whatever they are telling you. There's a difference between inconclusive evidence. We all did a lot of evidence. If it's inconclusive, it means you can rebut a presumption raised, right? But if it's conclusive, it means you can't adduce evidence to contradict what has been given you. And the state institution is telling you there is nobody there's no encumbering interest affecting this land. So why are we still placing such a heavy burden on her to go beyond that?
And I think Ernest, you are coming from the fact that you have hindsight, and right now you know that he had actually registered. Because if I go and conduct a search the first time and it comes up that there is no plotting on the land, I'm not going to conduct a search because you're trying to find something that may not even exist. I think maybe because of hindsight, you know that Benjamin.
So let me just, so for the due diligence, I beg to add and emphasize, it's been done in the first episode, I'm emphasizing it. Do your searches at Lands Commission. But by all means, additionally, go to the land. Because there are some, you may conduct a search, nobody has gone to record anything in respect of the land. It doesn't mean there's no work actively going on the land to show you that. So as I mentioned, the case of Boateng versus Jimfo, the court was clear that in addition to your searches, go to the land. Because whatever interest whoever is in possession of the land the court says you'll be imputed with actual notice of, and it is binding on you. Do you understand? So the due diligence must encompass searches as well as going to the land to visit the land. So I think if Beatrice has these two, that she did a search, again, if she did a search and then she also can demonstrate she went on the land, it was a bare land, nothing on it, I very much believe that she'll be able to satisfy the court that she did her due diligence well, and clearly it was obvious to her that there was nobody had any prior interest in the land.
Yeah. And I think that I just want to emphasize the last bit about the owner or the initial owner having notice of the fact that you are actually developing the land. So it's okay for Beatrice to have done her search, did not have notice, was innocent and all of that. But then in this instance, Benjamin should also have known that Beatrice was actually on the land for Beatrice to fully succeed. So even if Beatrice is able to show that Lands Commission made an error based on which she thought that she was acquiring the land innocently, if Benjamin was not aware, or she can't demonstrate that Benjamin was aware of her developing the land, then she will still fail on that.
Then again,
score.
isn't it strange? You buy a land.
I mean, the guy has gone to London.
7 years. Somebody has erected a 3-story building on their land.
Yeah,
you have no caretakers on their land. Nobody, no adjoining owners to say that, oh, Benjamin has already bought this land. Nothing for 7 years. It will be very difficult for him to prove that he was not aware. 3-story building, oh, Maame Afia. So any 3-bedroom house. oh, please.
So, Beatrice, please look for Christian. Christian has strong case for you. But like I'm saying, he has gone to London. So maybe anything that I mean, Ghana is a peaceful country, and so he has bought his land. The laws work and all of that. And then
anyone who buys land and for that outside with Christian, anyone who buys land
and goes to sleep
and abandons it in that manner, not even have a caretaker to watch over the land for 7 years. I mean, it's lucky it didn't, in Ghana, if you are in adverse possession for about 12 years per the Limitation Act, you can use that as a way to prevent even the true owner from coming back to his land. So he's just lucky it didn't get past that stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, so in our instance, Benjamin returned to Ghana in 2020. So what you're saying is, assuming Benjamin entered Ghana, returned back to Ghana in 2025, this whole thing is likely to change based on what you're saying.
Come back.
So you see, I think we should also introduce ownership, which stems from how title is sort of like proved, because a person may be in possession of something, like the king analogy that William made. I may be the king. I may have just placed my crown somewhere else. Someone will just go for the crown, wear it, and just go and sit on my throne. That doesn't make the person king. I can be in just pajamas and still actually be the king. But definitely, it depends on the circumstance, as he has explained. If by law, the statute of limitation being 12 years has expired, then it will make it very difficult for Benjamin to now come back and say that I am the true owner. I have the right to the land, and please vacate, or maybe perhaps he would go to the court to litigate over the title to the property when he has substantive documents to show, including the title certificate which he got from the Lands Commission, and then his indenture which he got from his grantors. But definitely, if Christian, you were making the point indicating that Beatrice would be able to use her possession and her indenture to prove him some sort of title, would it be against Benjamin, especially when the statute of limitation has not in itself expired, and then he has the title certificate and he also has his own indenture? And that was why I was maybe perhaps leaning more towards Benjamin in some way.
I'm coming. Ernest, are you asking a question?
Oh no, like we are having a conversation. I was just
I just want to say something, that when it comes to even the statute of limitations, you don't even need an indenture. You just need proof of adverse possession. Yeah. You could be like your typical commoner, common floor member, no crown, nothing. He just walks up to the throne in his rags, and then he sits on the throne for 12 years, and that's enough.
So in this instance, must the person also still be looking on for the adverse possession to kick in, or it doesn't matter whether you are looking on or you are not looking on, or must you be looking on?
As in?
So should the king at this point? So should the king be looking on whilst the commoner sits in his throne?
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
if the king was not looking on, say the king was looking
Time
elsewhere.
starts running when you get notice of this commoners sitting on your throne, usurping your jurisdiction or whatever. So, Christian, you can go ahead.
So, so this is one of the instances, and so apart from the extra by
acquiescence,
this is another instance where the true owner of the land has now been prevented from asserting. So, because as William and Ernest indicate, somebody enters into your land. Adverse possession basically means somebody who is not the owner of the land has entered the land and then he's exercising acts of ownership, which is inconsistent with your right. So if Maame Afia, you bought this place and you go to Kumasi for 1 year and I come and I'm the one, like I'm exercising,
I wall around your house.
I start doing foundation. You haven't given me consent. You haven't authorized me. That is adverse possession, right? And the moment I get wind of it and I don't do anything, 1 year goes, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 12 years. By the time it's 12 years, if my right to assert my ownership, the law says that it is extinguished. So now the one who is the adverse possessor now becomes, the law is silent on whether the person becomes the owner, but it just says you, the owner, you understand? So it's an instance that would have maybe availed to Beatrice if, let's say, the period had gone on for 12 years. But mind you, again, Beatrice must be able to demonstrate that Benjamin was aware.
And I think it's one thing that happens a lot in Ghana, where maybe squatters go and on someone's land, and by the time you realize, they now claim full-fledged ownership of the land. So basically, from everything you said so far, all I'm hearing is don't go to bed or go to sleep and abandon your
some
land.
Of these squatters are positioned there by the owners. So there's a difference between a squatter who has been placed there, who acknowledge, as Christian mentioned, you have to act in a manner that is inconsistent with the true owner's rights. So if you've been placed there and you acknowledge that maybe Mr. A is the one who placed me, he is the real owner, there's no problem. But when some people can even be placed there and then later they start doing things that are inconsistent. So the time would start running from that period.
Interesting conversation. So I just want us to, we are still on the Benjamin Beatrice discussion, but I just want us to turn the scenario just a bit. So we remember that Benjamin purchased the land from the Doku family. Now, assuming that Benjamin purchased it from, let's say, one of the family members in Doku family. So let's say Mr. X in the Doku family.
Let's try and give him a name.
Let's try and give him a name. Oh my God, my grand names are failing me right now.
Let's say usually works.
Okay, so let's say he bought it from Nisaba. So he bought it from Nisaba in the in the Doku family. Then Beatrice purchases it from Adukwe in the same Doku family. In this instance, is it going to matter to this whole Beatrice Benjamin saga?
I think it will definitely matter because there are two people who have granted the land to two different people concerning the same land. Now, it will raise the issue of capacity. In which capacity these people made that grant to the various people, the people in question. We need to understand, because it's a family, we need to identify who the head of family is. Once we identify who the family is, we can then answer the question of capacity. Because if, for instance, you use Nisaba and then Adukwe, if Nisaba was the head of family and Adukwe is, for instance, a nephew to Nisaba, you would then understand that the nephew cannot, without the consent or acknowledgement of Nisaba, make that subsequent grant to either Beatrice or Benjamin. But it behoves on Nisaba as the head of family to act in concurrence with the other principal members of the family, which may even include his nephew, depending on the role he plays in the family.
Yeah, and it's one of the big issues since I started practicing, I've noticed with family lands and stool lands too as well. You know, as he mentioned, it's the head of family who has the legal rights or at custom to deal with dispose of family land, even litigate in respect of family land, right? So to a large extent, it's very important that the public has an idea of at any point in time who is the valid person I should be dealing with. And I think this is something that the new Lands Act tried to address in a way by creating the land secretariat for
Customary
land secretariat for both, not just stool lands, but for family lands as well. Because we encounter situations, inquiries relating to this lack of capacity issues where it's not uncommon for a disgruntled family member to just get up one day and say, Master, this is my family. This is my family
I deserve
land.
some of the
Let me
land.
sell this land. And they'll do it because there's that apparent authority they may have, depending on, you know, how the family holds them out or whatever, that they also have some sort of authority when it comes to dealing with the family matters. Sometimes it's a respectable elderly person and you might think he wouldn't do that to you, but they are like the very people who will do that to you. So yeah, I feel like practically it's not something that I'm feeling the lands commission's effect, because they are supposed to liaise with the lands commission and ensure that at any point in time it's a valid like a comprehensive, you know, type of register. If this family head dies and the next person comes, we are supposed to be updating that register so that we know that if I'm buying land from Doku family, this is the current head of family for Doku family who can sell land to you, that kind of thing. But practically, I'm not seeing it. But I've realized that some families have set up their land secretariats and but probably need more public awareness about this. So it's
but the other challenge is also with the dispute or the internal dispute as to the appointment of the family heads as well. So sometimes it should go beyond perhaps ascertaining from that individual who claims to be making that grant to you as to whether he's indeed the head of family. You should first and foremost try and understand that family's history, because even if Ghana, we practice two inheritance systems, the matrilineal and the patrilineal, and each clan or tribe has a distinct way they assume such important roles in the family. You need to try and understand, let it make sense to you, probe further, ask to meet other members of the family, and just don't be dealing with one person thinking he is the right person to be selling off that property to you. Usually that is where disputes often arise.
Okay.
Yes.
How interesting conversations. We have to be wrapping up anyways. From everything we've said so far, the battle is not as clear cut as one would have it. Even if you come in, you have the you've been in possession, you have the certificate, you have an indenture. So many things come to play: adverse possession, acquiescence, capacity, and all those things that we've discussed so far. I just want to take your final words before we wrap up the conversation. So let's start with Ernest.
Okay, so land purchase is not a joke. It has to be meticulous. It has to be intentional, because definitely it's an investment that you'll be making. Don't be lazy about it. Even if you are able to make or complete the transaction, obtain the title certificate, you've learned today that there are certain situations you may lose what you have legitimately purchased or have acquired, even with the right documentation. So just don't sit down after the transaction has concluded, but do more. Ensure that you are in possession, actual possession. Erect something on the property, even whilst perhaps you are completing your registration process also at the Lands Commission to obtaining your land certificate. So yes.
Christian.
Yeah, so I'll engage lawyers. I would say engage lawyers. For the, as Ernest indicated, the transaction, you definitely need lawyers when you're doing your due diligence. The due diligence it has to be very comprehensive. If you are dealing with a family, like you said, you need to know you are dealing with the right persons. Because if the transfer is coming from somebody who doesn't have capacity to transfer on behalf of the family, then you are not getting a valid title. It also comes to whether even the family itself has title. So in a scenario like Ernest indicated, if the family itself, they are disputing over who is supposed to be the head, I won't buy from the family. Before I even come to whether you own the land. Because that means whoever tries to sell to me, maybe there will be a pronouncement later by the court that then what happens to my title? So I would say very important, the due diligence must be very, very comprehensive. And don't part with money before you are done with your due diligence. By all means, get your indenture. Like I said, the Lands Act puts so much premium on documentary evidence. Get your indenture, make sure you're getting from the right source, and then enter into possession. Even if you don't want to develop the land, like we said, some acts of possession, erect boundary pillars, put someone in to take care of the land for you, and by all means also register so that everyone will have noticed that if we go into this land, it belongs to Mr. So and so. So that is my, and by all means, engage law. Even if you mess up, please engage us and we'll assist you in any way we can.
Yes, William.
In the words of a lazy judge, I have nothing useful to add. But yeah, get a lawyer, because all these things we are talking about, to the layperson, it sounds really burdensome. And that's probably the reason why most of them don't do any of these things. Because even with lawyers, we get it wrong sometimes, because land is so complex. So the best chances you would have to not buy litigation is to purchase, not purchase a lawyer, that sounds wrong. Pay a lawyer to do that work, that groundwork, review your grantor's title documents, get the seller to commit with, they are really, when I say they, I mean the grantors are typically averse to signing, contracts for sale of land, but sometimes it's in your best interest. Even if what the problem would be negotiating the percentage which should constitute the deposits. Let the lawyer do the negotiations, okay? Then you commit yourself, the seller also commits themselves, and then you take your time to do the search. You agree on timelines within which you should complete your DD. That's your due diligence. And then potentially you could still do all that and still file litigation. It's not that straightforward, but it minimizes the chances of you, and we didn't even talk about conducting searches in the courts. Sometimes you need to do searches in the courts to know whether people are fighting over your land. So it's not that straightforward, but get a lawyer.
We have to bring this conversation to an end, so sadly, but for now, all I can say is that based on everything we've said, the battle between indenture, land title, certificate, and possession, for now it's a draw because of the nuances that happens. I know
it's not a draw. It's not a draw. It's not a draw. No.
It's not a draw. Okay, we'll definitely continue this conversation in the office. But thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you've had a wonderful time listening to all the nuggets of wisdom concerning land law, acquisition and ownership of property. Do follow us on all social media handles at B&P Associates, and you can also go back and watch some of the various podcasts we've had with very good content to feed you on issues relating to legal and social matters. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.